As Platonists, our aim is to open up Plato's teaching sufficiently so as to see the whole of which each of the various dialogues is a part. Once our studies ripen to this degree, we can delight in seeing the structure and significance of each dialogue as we go through its pages. Everything fits. Each idea that Plato introduces makes sense as part of a greater whole that encompasses not only this physical world, but the entire metaphysical reality of which this physical realm is a part. Before we reach this point, some of Plato's ideas can seem paradoxical. Plato presents these ideas in the voice of his teacher, Socrates. The Socrates we meet in Plato's dialogues is very much aware that his understanding of human existence is quite different from that of those around him. Socrates understood that this current human life is just one of a long chain of lives, that our essence is beyond this current incarnation. We are all playing roles that we must take seriously, but they are roles all the same. Socrates understood that the best life involves living in accordance with this divine law as consistently as possible. To this end, Socrates saw himself as a servant of God. He questioned people, and this was his mission. He tested who had any taste of wisdom and who was merely playing out a role. One way to do this was to introduce ideas that, when taken in the context of conventional viewpoints, seem paradoxical. These paradoxes are actually not paradoxes at all, but understanding them requires a shift in perspective and a shift in our understanding of what it means to be human. An example of one such so-called paradox can be found in the dialogue known in English as either Hippias Minor or Lesser Hippias. In this dialogue, Socrates is talking to the famed sophist Hippias. In the course of their discussion, Socrates puts forward the notion that those who do wrong voluntarily are better than those who do so involuntarily. I maintain that those who hurt or injure mankind and speak falsely and deceive and err voluntarily are better by far than those who do wrong involuntarily. The basic gist of the argument is that the wise have the knowledge and the power to tell falsehoods if they choose, whereas the ignorant might accidentally hit on the truth. He explained his reasoning in this way, using Hippias's mathematical skills as an example. Would the ignorant man be better able to tell a falsehood in matters of calculation than you would be, if you chose? Might he not sometimes stumble upon the truth when he wanted to tell a lie because he did not know? Whereas you, who are the wise man, if you wanted to tell a lie, would always and consistently lie? He put forward a number of examples that support his position so well that they are comical. Then in a race and in running, swiftness is good and slowness an evil quality? To be sure. Which of the two then is a better runner? He who runs slowly voluntarily, or he who runs slowly involuntarily? Well, he who runs slowly voluntarily. Well, but at a wrestling match, which is the better wrestler? He who falls voluntarily or involuntarily? He who falls voluntarily, doubtless. And what would you say of any other bodily exercise? Is not he who is better made able to do both that which is strong and that which is weak? that which is fair and that which is foul, so that when he does bad actions with the body, he who is better made does them voluntarily, and he who is worse made does them involuntarily? Yes, that appears to be true about strength. And so Hippias agrees to this argument, but in a qualified way, only in regards to physical strength. This compels Socrates to go on to other examples. And what would you say of an unmusical voice? Would you prefer the voice which is voluntarily or involuntarily out of tune? That which is voluntarily out of tune. And would you rather always have eyes with which you might voluntarily blink and not see, or with which you might involuntarily blink? I would rather have eyes which voluntarily blink. And what would you say of the art of medicine? Has not the mind which voluntarily works harm to the body more of the healing art? Yes. By this reasoning, that is. Socrates gives many more examples as well, but you get the idea. But there is one area in which the argument hits a snag. And should we not desire to have our own minds in the best state possible? Yes. And will our minds be better if they do wrong and make mistakes voluntarily or involuntarily? O Socrates, it would be a monstrous thing to say that those who do wrong voluntarily are better than those who do wrong involuntarily. The dialogue ends without a conclusion being reached. Then Hippias, he who voluntarily does wrong and disgraceful things, if there be such a man, will be the good man? There I cannot agree with you. Nor can I agree with myself, Hippias. And yet that seems to be the conclusion which, as far as we can see at present, must follow from our argument. Socrates, of course, would have known the flaws in this reasoning, but Plato left it for us, the readers, to grapple with this mystery. Why did the argument hold in regards to all those other instances, but not in regards to virtue? How does it differ? Well, the first step in seeing the way out is to recognize that the word good has multiple meanings depending on the context. In regards to sports, the better athlete is the one who is stronger and more skilled. Skill and talent also apply to artisans and other craft makers. Health is the measure of goodness in eyes, ears, and other bodily functions. But the word good takes on a very different meaning in regards to the virtues. Even Socrates himself ultimately rejects his own argument when he states that the man who commits injustice voluntarily is better than the one who does so involuntarily. For better in this context means more just or more virtuous. And this brings us to the next issue that is left out of this discussion. It is the fact that voluntarily committing injustice is a choice. It is a decision, and one that is ultimately unjust. And so, a person who is truly wise in regards to justice would understand that committing injustice voluntarily is no good. Anyone who thought it was good would do so out of ignorance. A person might stab a friend in the back, knowing that it is unjust, but thinking that he is benefiting from doing so. He doesn't understand that what he is doing is unhealthy for his own soul. In other words, such a person is not truly wise in regards to justice, because he does not know that justice is a power in the soul that brings health when it is there and disease when it is absent. In the Republic, Plato writes, Then to act unjustly and be unjust, and in turn to act justly, the meaning of all these terms becomes at once plain and clear, since injustice and justice are so. How so? Because these are in the soul what the healthful and diseaseful are in the body. There is no difference. In what respect? Healthful things surely engender health, and diseaseful disease. Yes. Then does not doing just acts engender justice, and unjust injustice? Of necessity. And then Socrates goes on to give us this conclusion. Virtue, then, as it seems, would be a kind of health and beauty and good condition of the soul, and vice would be disease, ugliness, and weakness. Any person who acts unjustly, thinking that there is some benefit in doing so, is, in this regard, acting out of ignorance. This person, then, is doing wrong involuntarily. Hippias intuited that Socrates' claim was wrong, but he couldn't explain why. Had he understood what justice truly is in the soul, a state of healthfulness that promotes healthfulness, well, then he would have reached another of the so-called Socratic paradoxes. Nobody does wrong voluntarily. This dialogue, then, is a good introduction to later dialogues such as Republic and Gorgias that explore the nature of the human soul and our place in the whole. Well, I hope you found all of this helpful. If you did, please give it a like and let me know in the comments section what you think of Hippias Minor. Until next time.